I wasn't sure if it was going to turn on.
As long as that was the only concern when you're pressing a massive flashing button.
It did turn red.
The big red button. Yeah. Right. Face on. I'll make you do this soon. Just for a trial. Hello and welcome back to episode number 50 of Widowed AF. I did not expect to be saying that. It coincides as well with us being just shy of 6 months as well as, if you could do a little drum roll.
I think there might be one on there.
Oh, okay, we'll insert a drum roll, otherwise you've just got the sound of me slapping my thigh. We have also reached, as of yesterday, 25,000 downloads. So that is incredible. And we are so grateful to all of you. And I'm going to stop kind of wafting on about this. And it just feels unbelievable sometimes that this is happening. And I know that so many of you are kind of getting something from this. And that, to be honest, brings us the most kind of joy, doesn't it? If that's the right word when we're talking about death.
That's why we started this, isn't it? Change the narrative, change the conversations, make it easier for us guys to wander through the world.
Yeah, because sometimes I do have conversations with people and they say, oh, yeah, I really enjoyed that conversation. Is that okay? And yeah, it is actually, because it is okay to be interested in other people's experiences of death. It doesn't make you, not always anyway, a voyeur or a vulture. It's okay to want to know what it feels like and how you kind of survive that, because as I do say, we are 50% likely to be widowed if you're in a romantic relationship. So you kind of have to face it, but it is that powerlessness and that reluctance to talk about it in the last taboo of death. Anyway, sorry, I do digress a little bit because I do have an agenda. It's a hastily written agenda, but we've got quite a lot to cover today because we've had a pretty busy week. So we would like to just kind of talk about Eileen's episode, because hers went out on Monday and it was a COVID death, which regular listeners will know are quite difficult for us to do, because my alive husband, Mr. Gil Moss, very nearly wasn't my alive boyfriend back in March 2020.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk a little bit about the similarities between both Eileen's experience and her husband, Scott, who, I mean, they were together for 32 years. Oh, actually, sorry, he's not her husband, he's her partner. Sorry, I should get that right. I do apologise, Eileen. So sorry, he was her partner of 32 years. I mean, they were together from when they were 17. And just before we came on mic, I said, I cannot imagine that, spending that long with somebody and then losing them in a time like COVID when you couldn't even visit them and say the things you wanted to. That really did break my heart, I have to say.
And they've been projected to loneliness, the lockdown. That's difficult. It's really difficult. It was a real difficult listen, if I'm honest.
Yeah, you didn't sit in. So sometimes John will listen in on the episodes. Just he's kind of in the background in case we have technical issues or in case, there's something he wants to note down. And this one he didn't, because he knew he would listen to it back for the final edit and he knew that we would then talk about it here. And it is a very, very difficult subject because Eileen's husband, he caught COVID and he actually was a little bit later. It was 2021, so it wasn't back in the early days, which surprised me. Yeah, and he also spent a month in the ICU, which is kind of the exact amount of time that you spent intubated in the ICU. And it just, listening to it, it made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck, because it made me realise just how lucky we are that you made it and just how many people didn't.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of heartache out there. And whether history looks on this favourably or negatively, I don't know. I know that they saved my life. If it wasn't for the teams that were working through those hospitals at that particular time, chances are I wouldn't have been here. So many things went in my favour, even though it was a horrific thing. And that seems to be a resounding thing in life. The good can go with the bad, and I was in ICU, but one hell of a team was looking after me.
Yeah, they were a great team, actually.
Not just nurses. We got talk about Rose here. Going out, getting the dictaphones, just collating messages. I still have them. They're wonderful.
It was the only thing I could think of to do, because I wasn't allowed to see you and I wasn't allowed to contact you. Well, I couldn't contact you. You were in a coma. And they did eventually bring in iPads and things, but people were then subsequently saying goodbye to people via iPad. I mean, it just breaks my heart. And I kept saying to them, if he dies, will you let me come and say goodbye? And in the end, I got them to say yes, but I would have had to be in full spaceman suit. And I suppose I dreaded that call. I wanted to come in so badly, but I also knew if they told me I could come in, that I wasn't going to be coming out with an alive partner. So staring down the barrel of that again was very, very scary. And coming out of that was very, very scary for you, because it made you completely reevaluate your life, didn't it? And you made two kind of monumental life choices, which ultimately ended up in us being married and us being able to build this life together. And we are very, very happy, as we say quite often. But I think to skirt so close to the edge, so close to already having lived through this horrific trauma of each of us losing our spouse, it did leave us jarred. And I do think it kind of delayed a lot of grief processing, because we were just in survival.
Yeah, and I remember the one call I got after the event by the teams over in the NHS, and the fellow who spoke to me had been one of the nurses on the ward who'd been looking after me, and he says he remembers looking in my eyes and I just looked scared. Yeah. And I now recognise that feeling, and it's the one that we've all felt when we've lost, we lost our other halves. That void, the holy fucking shit.
And the powerlessness as well, because we also talk about this idea that you can be a good person, you can eat well, exercise, do all the things you're supposed to do, but you can still die. And you can die from diseases that you shouldn't get because you're young and fit and healthy. And you can die in horrible, tragic, sudden circumstances too. And in some cases, people take their own lives. None of us are immune from it. And I think talking about it and kind of facing up to that reality of it is one thing, but actually facing the reality of your own mortality is scary. And it sent you onto almost health anxiety, didn't it?
It was quite the arc.
Yeah.
It landed me back with a counsellor.
Yeah, and actually you sort of have a relationship with your counsellor where you kind of dip in and out, don't you, periodically when you need it. I still kind of have to go every week because I know what I'm like and I need the structure and the routine of that. But anyway, I mean, it was a powerful, powerful episode because she talks so beautifully about the pain of watching somebody you die but not actually being able to be with somebody you love die and not actually being able to be there. And there's one quote in particular that she said, as soon as they said intubation, that she knew, and this thought went through her head that there's no way he's going to come out of there alive. And I think in some ways I feel quite grateful for the ignorance I had that you went in so early, because at the time when they said we're going to intubate, I thought it was going to be for a week and it would just cure you and you'd be fine. Whereas going into this in October 21, when we knew so much more about what happened when people went into intubation, it must have been even more scary.
It would have been a different conversation. I remember when they said we're going to take you down, and I was frantically texting everybody because they were about to put me to sleep. So I was quite literally off the grid for 7 days, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I've been for operations before, and it was very similar. But then to wake up and I didn't know I thought it was Christmas time. I thought 6-9 months had passed by. They went, oh, no, it's May. And then the doctor walked in and he sort of clapped his clipboard. He goes, oh, my, it's my miracle man. And he told me what had happened, and it was like an anvil just went through my brain. And I couldn't, if I'm honest, I was still coming off the meds from the ICU.
And I think also when you are, you're quite a successful, powerful man in your business, and you have
That's
managed
the
to.
powerful.
Oh, all right, sorry, okay, influential. So I don't know the right. I'm trying not.
Yeah, sorry.
Right, don't interrupt the flow. You can't do that to somebody with ADHD. I'll go for talking about kittens or something in a minute.
That's the idea.
I'll go and
That is
start
the
cleaning
idea.
a cupboard out. Sorry. Yes. So the other aspect of it is we talk about this powerlessness and how you can't save somebody when they're dying, and you tried everything when Sarah was diagnosed, and of course we faced this very similar scenario when you were in hospital, because you came home to me perhaps earlier than you would have under normal circumstances because of how overstretched they were, and also because of how stubborn you are.
There is that, yes.
And it was that situation of, I can't do anything here. Like, it's just me and you, kid, kind of thing. We just bumbled through it. But you had to surrender so much kind of power to other people because initially you couldn't even walk. So all your meals, and sleeping on a mattress on the floor, and I'm sleeping on a different mattress next to you. It took you back to being completely vulnerable and almost like somebody that is very poorly. And that must have been very difficult for you to be in a similar position to the one that you had watched Sarah go through. And obviously, thankfully, your outcome was positive, and you're here and you're well and you're fit and you're unable to be with your family. But for so many people, even those who survived it, they haven't even had that. They've been left so poorly and so debilitated. Obviously, it's a subject that's really, really close to our hearts, and we could kind of talk for ages about this, and perhaps we will again at some point. But I am conscious that it's a wash up, and we've got quite a long episode already. We're pumping out 3 episodes this week. We're on fire.
Yeah, we've got some content coming out.
We have got some content coming out. And on that note, we really do need to mention the episode that we had out yesterday, which was probably the most daunting thing I've done so far. Close second maybe to the presentation to RPC. But it was nerve-wracking, and I can certainly hear it in my voice when I start, and I kind of hear when I find my flow a bit. But I suppose it was a really interesting conversation because she really is at the top of her field in this industry.
Yeah. Before we go into it, I'm just going to interject a little bit. She says that she gets nervous. Now, I sit and I watch what she puts herself through before pretty much every single episode, even these ones where it's just me and Rose chatting away, because she really does care. And I've seen her go for interviews at the BBC, shaking like a leaf when she goes in, but then as soon as the lights come on, so to speak, you light up and you turn it on. And the interview with Julia was, that was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
She's an MBE and a noted author. Speaking to little olders on Widowed AF, but I was incredibly proud that you did that, and even more proud that you got the validation afterwards.
You're so sweet. Thank you. I'm blushing over here and trying not to cry again. I cry all the time. Thank you. It was... I was very, very honoured, actually, because it validated me, because I repeatedly say I'm no expert, I've got no qualifications in this. But whereas a psychiatrist or a counsellor or a therapist, they may have personal experience, but they have learnt how the road to healing or the best route to it, like Julia has done. And then we came to it quite organically. I mean, we've done therapy and done lots and lots of reading and stuff, audiobooks. But how you could kind of come to the same conclusion that really there is only one way out, and the way out is to face it head on. And you cannot outrun it, and the more you try, the longer it's going to take. But she said some very lovely things, actually, which was, it was amazing. And one of the key things that I really wanted to talk to her about, and I was able to, was because she does specialise in the impact of grief on children and into adulthood. She treats adults. I was able to ask her about our youngest, Tabitha, and she was 6 months when Ben died, my first husband and my children's dad. And I have always wanted to know really how much damage can be done to a 6-month-old? How much do they absorb? How much do they take on? Because I give myself credit now that I did try very hard to keep the kind of developmental needs. I took her to sensory groups, and she was exclusively fed on Ella's Kitchen, and there was no mashing up of organic food this time round. But my mum and dad moved in, and anyway, I digress. This is all in the other episode. But I wanted to ask her if Tabby could have been sort of long-term damaged by this trauma, and if so, when I would know, when signs would show. And she said, "How old is she?" And I said, "She's 5. She'll be 6 in September." And she sort of said, initially asked me some questions, and I said, "No. I mean, not a great sleeper, but apparently nor was I." Hey, and she said, "No, I think you would see any signs of real severe psychological trauma." And I guess I felt this weight lift. And she also clearly agreed with the way we're raising the kids, and they're keeping Ben and Sarah very much part of our world. And I guess to have the way that you have chosen and elected a parent without anybody telling us, and having somebody say, no, that is actually a really healthy way to do it.
It is, yeah.
You just think, oh God, because so much of what we're doing, particularly as a blended family, and a blended family who've had such bereavement, is trial and error.
You don't want to know how many star charts we've gone through.
Oh my God, I'm on to another quest now.
But we've got another one coming for the summer holidays. Maybe, if you're interested, we'll publish it and we can follow along, see who managed to make it stick for the summer.
Oh my God. Is this the chore-related one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we basically just don't want to pick dog poo up anymore. So we're trying to monetize, or empty the can. So we're trying to monetize all the jobs we don't really want to do. And in lieu of just relentless requests for money over the summer holidays. So we've got 2 off already, 1 off next week, and 1 off the week after. Yep. So they're kind of coming down in dominoes, but it's quite nice actually. So on that note, I really wanted to speak to somebody who is a very good friend of mine and has talked to me quite a bit actually over the years that I've known her about losing her dad at 11 and the things that helped and the things that hindered. And just every now and then she will give me this absolute gem of wisdom, won't she? And it's incredibly helpful. So I think now would be an opportune moment to play a little bit of a conversation I recorded with my very good friend Jess Yeldon earlier today. So I won't play the full conversation because otherwise this will be an epic episode, but you'll get a little bit of it and I'll put it out in full at a later date. But for now, here is a conversation I had with Jess earlier today.
I mean, we obviously your podcast is about widowhood, but grief is universal, isn't it? I mean, I've listened to almost all of your episodes, and I've sobbed along with them because I know what they're feeling. And I was speaking to my mum about coming on here, and she talked about telling me, and apparently I made that inhumane noise when she told me too. And wow. I've heard so many of your guests say that at the same time, and that resonated with me. And the idea that you were talking about on Monday about, somebody saying something well-meaning to Monty and him really latching onto that. I had a very similar experience. Something that actually, it was even before my dad was sick. Have you ever read Anne of Green Gables?
Yes, many years ago. Don't ask me to quote it, please.
No, I had the tape, cassette tape of it, of the storybook.
This is how old we are, people.
Yeah, exactly. And I was listening to it probably about a year before he was diagnosed. And we got to the part in it where Anne loses her adoptive father, Matthew. He dies. And as I said, my dad was fine at the time. There was nothing wrong. And I started sobbing to the point where my mum, who was downstairs, heard and came up and saw me, and I was sobbing. And I said, I don't want my daddy to die. And she said to me, Daddy's not going anywhere for a long, long time, honey. And then the next year he was diagnosed with cancer. And in my child brain, I interpreted that as, holy shit, I can then tell when people are going to die. Or when people are going to be sick. So now every time I have a worrying thought about someone, I think, is it going to come true? Is it going to happen? And I realised that was the two things were entirely not connected. But in my child brain, I put the two together because why would you not? I was told my dad was not going to die for a long time, and he did. And I found that very, very difficult to deal with for quite a long time.
It shatters your reality. And
Yeah.
that sounds like a sort of really extreme statement, but it does. Your entire reality and trust in the world is shattered. And I know I saw that in my children. I can feel myself go, oh, because anything to do with the kids sets me off. But it just, and I can see it now. I can see it now in them. And I've spoken previously on the podcast, that I'm going to be working with one of my children for next year to try and help him through this, because he's not yet been able to access the counselling and things that I do think are so valuable. And I'm guessing that sort of stuff wasn't available to you as an 11-year-old child going through this. And so I'm sorry, just as a sort of side note, really, the fact that your parents weren't together, that must have impacted on how your mother grieved and therefore how you grieved. And how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so my dad, first of all, I want to say he loved me very much, and I absolutely know that, but he wasn't a saint.
I found talking to Jess quite powerful because she talked to me about things in a bit more detail, and I kind of probed her a little bit. I knew sort of more or less how far I could push her. I didn't want to go too far. But to hear that you can have a loss like that and go on to process it in a healthy way and form healthy relationships. But I think also what I took from that was the importance of giving children some autonomy and letting them have a say, if they're of an appropriate age, in the decision process. For example, her mum asking her if she wanted to go and see her dad's body. Now, I initially just went, Jesus, but at 11, some 11-year-old girls are mature enough and emotionally...
That's the question,
yeah, and she chose to go, and she says she doesn't regret it. And the other thing was this talk where she talks about her brother, who was younger than her, not having any real memories, just having these sort of learnt memories, and whether she would swap the pain but lose the memories. And she said no. And I thought that was really kind of poignant, I suppose, and really spoke to me about the importance of holding on to memories and sharing them with the kids. And I guess it made me think I really do need to get the video out, because there is video footage of Ben and I've never been able to watch it. And I think actually I said I would try and do it this year. And I think possibly I'm getting towards being ready. And certainly I'm getting to the point where the children really, really, I should have it available to them, because she said she found this one tiny bit of video and how much it meant to her to see her dad like in moving form. And I thought, oh God, I can give my kids that gift. Actually, I really should do that. So that is going to be something I'm going to build myself up to. And if I feel up to it, I may share just a little clip on the socials, because it would be nice for everybody to see a bit of walking, talking. How does that go? That's your mum was the Cliff Richard fan. You should Living Doll. That was that. Sorry. Oh Living my God. Once again, we're doing an evening record. I'm sure you can tell by now which these are.
I similarly have a laptop down in the basement that
creepy.
I can't open. I cannot. I don't want to open. It's Sarah's old laptop, and I will have to at some point. Probably have to go off battle with that Apple, but
yeah, it is tough. It is tough because you have to psych yourself up so much, and it really is difficult. And I suppose I don't know how I'm going to cope with seeing a living, well, not a living, but a sort of, I guess, looking like a living version of him. But as my very wise counsellor said to me, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to be upset?
And then you'll stop crying.
Yeah, you might have a cry. Well, I'm a cry convert, remember? So anyway, on that note, we are going to love you and leave you for this week. And it has been just a whirlwind of I just feel so grateful to be doing this. And we love this. We love what we're doing, and we love all of you for being so invested and supporting us. So from me and...
I just have one thing to interject, and
go on.
no, I'm not going to say like and subscribe.
Oh, no, but we would like you to vote for us in the podcast awards. We would, as a newcomer award. No, there's
subscribe,
not. And listener's choice.
Listener's choice, yeah. There's an instruction video on the Instagram. So for those who listened to Julia's episode on Wednesday, we did reference an app. That is an app of her.
Yes.
Now, we have, we'll be honest, we've signed up to an affiliate deal with the people that make the app. So we promote it, so you guys get a discount. We get a little bit kickback, which sort of starts to pay some of the costs.
Keep the lights on.
Running this podcast, which So we're going to do a little bit of an experiment now. We're just waiting for the links to be set up. I think my contact may be on holiday, but the links we got are not working at the moment. So as soon as they're on, look for an Instagram post. And if anyone's interested, in the meantime, drop us a message on Instagram or on one of the email addresses on our website.
And as I did say in the episode with Julia, actually, we haven't taken any advertising yet. We feel very strongly about this, that this should be somewhere. I guess what we don't want to do is monetize other people's pain. I suppose that's where we sit on this. However, these things are expensive. We do, it does take time. And we felt that putting a affiliate link on something that we genuinely believed in on these sort of chattier, more less formal episodes, we feel ethically that's okay. And if you guys don't, we would like to hear from you. And if you do, have a look into it, because I genuinely think that it's not going to be for everybody. Nothing is. But I do think for some people who are ready to take that next step into kind of getting out of the pit, it could be a really, really useful resource.
Well, I sent it over to my relative that lost her husband at Christmas. So I check in with her.
Well,
I try to do it once a month, don't I? See how she's done, and she's well and truly in the chicken and wine, fried chicken and wine year. Maybe not with fried chicken and wine,
but that is the affectionate term we give to the bleak wilderness year when you are just numbing your pain with whatever you can, and believe me, it's not always chicken and wine.
But she explained to me that her life feels like it's running on clockwork. Everything's to be repetitive. Everything's boring. But she's downloading the app and having a look to see if she's ready to look at it.
Yeah, and even that's progress, isn't it?
It gave me this thought. Sorry, it gave me this thought of by putting the clockwork lifestyle together. That's the first bit of scaffolding you need for your mind to then start to process the grief. That's the top of the flow.
Putting back structure and putting back the basic human, the pillars, the blobs of healing, starting to even, I put your head above the parapet. That is the first step. And, we're here to give you some help if we can. Our Instagram inbox is open. You can get us on our email addresses. If you would like to reach out to us, we do our best to reply to everybody. And we do enjoy hearing from you. But for now, everybody, you please do take care of yourselves, and we will. So close to getting an ending. Good then, wasn't I? So close. Anyway, right, guys. Oh my God, I didn't use the word guys. Oh my God, I am actually turning into one of the kids' YouTube channels. Thank you for listening, everybody. We love you, and we will see you next week.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye.
Good night. Good night. Goodbye.